Well, I'm not sure. You have to look at any specific business model in much greater detail than I am aware of today. One of the challenges of electric infrastructure is electricity is a very low-cost fuel, and it flows relatively slowly. So each action, each event of charging a vehicle or swapping out a battery, and battery swapping and things like fast charging, what I would say quick ways of increasing electric vehicle utility, are very well known in industry, where they run electric forklifts and ground support equipment at airports and all these things, and they do it because it's more cost effective. They win not because of minor emissions reductions, they win because of cost and maintenance and fueling. And especially now, they did this back in $2 land. So, however, each event, whether you swap out a battery or you fast charge someone or you put in a street side charger that charges people overnight who don't have garages, you're talking very, very low cents per hour opportunities for revenue. So whatever you do, you have to do it on a very cost-effective basis if you're going to make it work, because you have a huge capital investment. You've got to recover that investment. So without getting into the details of any one plan, public infrastructure or multi-user infrastructure is definitely a challenge that has to be addressed, more so for electric vehicles than plug-in hybrids. But the city of San Francisco said the other day that they think only maybe a small fraction of their vehicle owners have garages to park them in to access infrastructure. So they have a high median income. They're going to be early adopters. They have the highest density of Priuses, I think, in the country. And that problem will have to be addressed, but it has to be addressed very cost effectively. Sure. Because I'll say this, that vehicles are expensive, batteries are expensive, and in the future, in this rosy future, I believe that we'll have a vehicle that has a lifetime battery, and we'll be very well aware of that plug-in hybrid vehicle batteries will ultimately last life. And we'll get to that point before we get to a truly cost competitive. We will always have to pay a little more up front and for the savings down the road.
30-second rebuttal.
I actually don't believe in we have to pay more up front. I think that we have to pay more up front. We tried that. It didn't work.
We can talk about that.
No, but I think the situation is such that if we go to consumers and we say every electric charge you pay for in a transaction, you need to pass your credit card and it's a hassle, there's a problem. If we put a network and an operator in place where your contract is a one-time contract, where your interaction is everywhere you go you can charge, it's not just your home meter, where you're not limited by infrastructure, and the car price is cheaper, it's not more expensive, then you don't see small fraction, then you see a tipping.
Hold that thought. I'm delighted to see there's a robust interplay of market forces pushing different business models, because this is a sign that there might actually be profits to be made in doing this, and not only addressing the public goods problem. So this to me is actually a very good sign. We have a long queue of people waiting, so let me start taking questions. I might take a couple of questions at once and then put them to my panelists. Just a couple of ground rules, please. I'd be very grateful if you could identify yourself, and if you could make your question short, direct, and preferably witty. As opposed to a long gas bag comment. Nobody wants any of those. That's the chairman's prerogative. Go on, sir.
I'm Stan Klein. My company is Open Secure Energy Control Systems. And I have two comments that I want to get.
Please, a question.
It's real quick.
A lot of people behind you.
I want to get your reaction to both of these. First, I did a back-of-the-envelope calculation, and I've calculated that if every car in the United States had the specs of a Chevy Volt, a 30% penetration of wind power would take care of all of the battery charging. And by comparison, Denmark is at 25% wind power, headed to 50%. I'm glad you mentioned Denmark. Second point is that the information infrastructure of the electric grid is just as important as the electric infrastructure and the market infrastructure. And I'd like your reaction to those two comments.
Very good. So we'll take a note. Sir, right behind you. Let me take another gentleman.
Can we have a response?
Carlos Strauss from Cortona Academy. My family owns a school in Northern Virginia. And 2 years ago, I got a bumper sticker from CalCars that said 100 miles per gallon on my car. Put it on my car, and I was amazed how many people would stop and say, wow, this car gets 100 miles per hour. It's a PT Cruiser. It didn't, but people would stop and see that. Then I bought a bumper sticker a few weeks ago from GMVolt.com that sponsors the Volt car. It says electric on it, and I swear that angry men in pickup trucks have been threatening to ram my car because they do not like the word electric. I noticed that every one of the panelists, they keep saying electric cars, electric cars, electric cars. And so I did a personal study, and I talked to 70 people. And I said, would you rather buy a plug-in electric car or a car that gets 200 miles per gallon commuting to work? And almost 95% of them said, I want a car that gets 200 miles per gallon commuting to work. I'm talking about the General Motors Volt car.
So
I think it's a big mistake not advertising that these cars get 200 miles per gallon and advertising that they're electric. Electric, I think people don't want 200 miles per gallon. Everyone understands that.
I think that's actually a very powerful point the gentleman makes, more of a comment than a question. What ordinary people want, of course, are energy services. What my good friend Emery Lovins likes to call the cold beer and hot showers, right? Nobody cares about electrons, and similarly, what people want from cars are reliable, fun, safe mobility, personal
How to
mobility.
advertise it properly
and
for the public,
electric
too.
nobody actually cares about the benefit, other than maybe the people in this room.
Well, they don't understand it, is what I'm saying. Nobody
Right.
understands electric car. 200 miles per gallon, you don't have to explain it. Just put an asterisk below
Let me,
it. Hey,
let me
sales
start my
rep.
questions in reverse and go to Chelsea. You've dealt with the grassroots. How do you deal with the question of how you ask the question and what do people respond to? Because again, you've got a lot of experience canvassing more than 70 people.
Actually, what jumped out at me the most was sort of the speculation that maybe GM might have made a mistake in marketing. And God knows they've never done that before. You know, just as there are a number of different issues that bring people to the table, climate change, economics, national security, there are a number of different messaging things that they'd like to hear. So, you know, really what it comes down to for the consumer is, what does this mean for me? And one of the things that we've learned is that people like to conspicuously non-consume. It's part of the reason the Prius is more successful than the Honda Civic Hybrid. It looks like a Prius. And we have the same experience on the EV programs. The more distinctive ones got more attention. So that's really what it comes down to. People want to know what it means to me. They understand 100 miles per gallon. Some of them understand electric, but as we've covered, some of them don't know what electric is, or it means a golf cart. So that's the issue, but it's real world economic terms for the consumer.
You wanted to jump in?
All I was going to say is that I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, all you have to do is look at the automakers' very expensive television advertising in recent years, right up front for a change because of the remarkable occurrences in the oil and gas price markets. MPG, MPG, MPG. It is what people care about. I agree.
The first gentleman asked a couple of questions. Mark, do you want to take the question about electricity infrastructure?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that much wind could charge every vehicle in the United States. A single large power plant can probably charge 2 million plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So the kind of wind he's talking about, remember this is a huge system, 900,000 megawatts, growing at 1% to 2% a year depending on the region of the country. So it can definitely handle it. It can definitely handle it.
The Great Plains have been called the Saudi Arabia of wind. But don't we need significant improvements in grid infrastructure, whether it's DC lines or better means of both storing and transmitting?
I think it's important to state that the utility industry is doing hundreds of billions of dollars in investment in new generation technology, renewables, smart grid, and if you're into disruptive technologies and you like new innovation and new ideas, that's where a lot of that is going to hit. They have to do this anyway. The key is that when the plug-in hybrid comes to market or electric vehicles come to market, the grid integration piece is already done so that these vehicles slot in. We use the onboard intelligence that every car has a surplus of, and we use it to have these vehicles act as intelligent grid agents right off the bat. If we do that simply for charging, we'll get the lowest possible cost, consumers will get the cheapest electricity, and everyone will go away happy.